I'm not a tax advisor. I just like this game.
Hello and welcome to the Forgeborn Finishing School. Kckid and Koar here. We'll be analyzing Forgeborn battles to help take your game to the next level.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Last week we wrapped up Fuse Fest and kind of talked about the storyline events, the sealed, the constructed, some of our initial thoughts on set 3. Still delving into set 3 a little bit, but we had some very divisive news right after Fuse Fest. Actually, it came out prior to our last week's recording, but we thought we needed to do a little research, invest ourselves, pun intended, in the information that we've been given to kind of make sure we're at least giving information that we believe to be correct. And there's a ton of information out there, Greg. And so, sorry I haven't just kind of popped out with it right now, but Web3 integration, we've got the rocket here strapped to it. We're going to the moon with Solforge Fusion. Took a little bit of inspiration from the GameStop movement here, but Web3 integration, that kind of came out of nowhere and took us all by surprise a little bit, Greg.
Yeah, it was certainly. I feel like it was a damper on the community right off of a very high note. From what kind of transpired after Fuse Fest. Fuse Fest was awesome, and then just immediately after. We get hit with this news and everybody's trying to digest it, trying to understand it. And there's a lot of questions involved in it. No artists were harmed in the making of these images, by the way, as well.
They were artificially generated. We got to be honest about that.
Yeah. But sorry,
it's
one of the hot topics.
So what we really wanted to do, for those that have already hung through us with this already, is I was kind of alluding to, there's a lot of information out there, and even having discussions in Discord with players, most people can't keep up with it. It's just too much. And so what we want to try to do, obviously we're going to have our opinions in here, but we're going to just try to give a rundown of all the information we've kind of seen splashed into the Discord to date. I mean, apologies, I probably have missed one or two things, or, we've chosen to leave a couple things out, but there's a lot of good stuff that have been put out there. What we tried to do, I think, was keep this information to Stoneblade specific information that's been put out. So we've seen a lot of different resources put out there, which are all great learning resources, and we've done our own research, but we are going to stick mostly to what Stoneblade has put out and just put it, and discuss with it in context of our knowledge. So to jump into that, Greg, this is, and all the links to everything we discuss here is going to be in the video description, so please feel free to check it out, because we'll cruise through some of it, of course. This was kind of what I call a white paper, but it's not really. It's like a slide through of all the information of the Web3 project of Solforge Fusion. So we're going to step through this piece by piece. It was uploaded to Gitbook from Stoneblade. But one thing I wanted to hit before that was a couple things. And these were also, this is a podcast done by Justin Gary, CEO of Stoneblade, and it was with a gentleman, Niraj Kashyap. I listened to this. This was a very, very good listen. I enjoy all of Justin Gary's podcasts and blogs. So if you don't read them, they're good. He puts out information, in his opinion, in a good format. But this one, Niraj Kashyap and his team, he works with a group or a company that they put out a lot of Web3 games, and it seemed to me that their prospectus was to release multiple Web3 games across different genres and coins, as a way to kind of leverage themselves and make money. That's their aspect. But they did have what I would say was a little bit of a goodwill aspect to it, is they were catering to different markets, right, to kind of leverage their risk. Some went after kind of the gambling, fully Web3 integration, and some other games went after actual gameplay with a little bit of Web3 splash to make money. And on those ones, it seemed that Niraj and his team really focused on trying to target people that were not Web3 savvy folks. And they did that by providing an in-company safe haven wallet, which, disclosure in the crypto world, generally it's not advisable to let anyone own or control your wallet, right? That shouldn't happen. They shouldn't have your keys or your password. But if there are a minimal value or non-valuable things in your wallet, I think that's a very good step into the market to have a company that you bought the things from, you trust to some small degree, own your NFTs in the environment wallet. And then at any point, Neeraj and his team allowed you to opt out and move things to an offsite wallet. I thought that was a really cool, good step. Not sure of the feasibility of that for Solforge Fusion. I think it would be good for beginners. When you first create your account, you don't tie a wallet or don't send anything from the game to a wallet. All you would do is put in your email, it creates you a wallet, and that's where your 4 first starter decks go, right? Or the ones you unlock in the thing go there, and it's your choice to move them out of that wallet. And then anytime you buy decks in-app, it would say, do you want to send this to an external wallet, yes or no? I think that would be a really good goodwill step firsthand, Greg.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I kind of like that concept. I didn't get a chance. I kind of clicked through a few of these. I really didn't get a chance to pay attention or listen to pretty much any of it at all. So I will say it is interesting from the description you provided. It seemed like that NFT generation was potentially free. I think with Solforge, it's potential in order to move it to an NFT, you're gonna have to pay a token.
Yeah, so in these games, generally speaking, you unlock some stuff for free. You unlock NFTs for free. But kind of like think of any RPG progression. Let's take that scenario, not the gambling one, but the RPG scenario. I'm level 1, I'm trucking through the dungeon, and I kill my first skeleton, and out drops a basic sword NFT. Now, mine is slightly different than everyone else's, but the stats are roughly the same. That NFT isn't of any value, but it could be an NFT. But eventually I say, I want a shiny silver sword, but I know it's very hard for me to find it. So I'm going to go to the player auction and buy a shiny silver sword that another player found off a skeleton. Mm-hmm. I'm going to buy his, and the game takes a cut. All right, that's not how all these games work, but that's a pretty generic model.
Okay.
Kind of like a World of Warcraft marketplace type thing, but using taxable income or credits. Right. And so this one was interesting. I think we can jump to the next article. So this one has a lot of good topics. Sorry, you see me scrolling all the way up. But this is the future of gaming with Web3. And now if you look at the published date, this is on Justin Gary's blog, March 20th, 2024. So if we'd have had our thinking caps on and been following a little better, we would have maybe seen not the writing on the wall per se, but Stoneblade's inclination towards Web3 integration. And he goes through here, and now that you know it has Solforge Fusion has Web3 integration, when you go back and read this, I think it does read as if it's intended, and it's enlightening. Like, okay, this was an intended part of the process. And they thought to put these articles in advance to open up the market, maybe.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you kind of go back and look at this, because if you look at the games that SB offers, right, Ascension Tactics, Infinity, right, are kind of the other 3 big ones. Then you have Solforge Fusion. Solforge Fusion makes the most sense to go this route, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually it's probably a good piece in this to get into. And so keep these things in mind once we get back to the roadmap or the white paper. But they kind of break down Web 2, Web 3, Justin Gary breaks down Web 2, Web 3, crypto, DAOs, and NFTs. And so I'm going to give you a once over the world in case you don't go read this out there. But Web 2, that's your traditional internet. Generally, most things aren't private. All of your information is seen and accessed by Google and Facebook. And it is because we allow it to be, because it makes our lives easier. It's the internet we know today. Web 3 is I think it's being billed as the new internet that's currently in its infancy. And that is that everything is decentralized and private. And I will tell you from my research and dabbling, that's not true. It's just harder to see who's going where or doing what. And it is much harder to break things apart, right? So we're used to in Web 2, if a server farm goes down, you might not be able to access your favorite websites. Web 3, that's much harder to do. It's also much harder to see you, Greg, specifically visiting a website. It's not impossible. There are many people who hackers in the Web3 world and things like that have been found and searched back through algorithms of, where they inject money, where they pull money out. So it is still traceable. It's just much more difficult. And I don't say that to say that, that's all shady, but that's kind of the decentralized anonymous idea of Web3 is the idea, but it's also that the good part is that you own your data. Okay, that's what the promise is that I'm never giving all of my data freely to Google to sell with as they please, so that I get those targeted advertisements, that Amazon comes out with the sales that are targeted at me, that kind of stuff. And then crypto is the digital currency of the future. It's just like any other currency you think. It's assigned value by us humans assigning it value, whereas now the US dollar is assigned value by us saying it has value, but the government also backing it up and saying we also think it has value. That's not much more than crypto if we really think about it, other than the US government's a large entity that's been around for a decent amount of time, so we trust it. Solana has not been around as long. Cardano, Ethereum, Bitcoin, some have been around longer, but still in the context of the British ruling party, not that long, right? So now those were all a primer, just so that we could get into what I think is going to matter for Solforge Fusion, and we'll see it in the roadmap later, and that is the decentralized autonomous organizations. Now, what this generally looks like in Web3, so I'll take context from myself. If I have a certain amount of tokens in another coin, and I have enough, and I stake those coins and say, I don't intend to sell these, I'm going to hold them. They can generate their own value, but they also give me voting power in the entire project. And so when large projects go to pass on that coin, I get my vote. And so that's a typical thing. That's something I've taken part of. It's called a decentralized autonomous organization. Now, the way you get that voting power is different by every project. And we'll get into it with Solforge Fusion a little bit. But what we think that's going to look like is by you having a certain amount of their coin SFG, or you having rare and specific NFTs. If I were to think what that would be, I would assume that the world-winning deck that was ranked up to platinum, if that would have minted as an NFT, I would assume that would give him a voting power. That's just a guess. And then NFTs. This is kind of the crux, not the crux, but the basis of what Stoneblade says why we're getting in Web3 into Solforge Fusion. So NFT is a non-fungible token. Non-fungible is a fancy word for unique, not copyable. No one can say they have the same thing. It might look the same, but that just means it's a really good forgery. It will never have the same serial number. It can't be proven in the ledger or in the accountable in the blockchain is the term that's used to say that it's not the same thing. So it's not fungible, it's not copyable, it is unique. And what we're going to be allowed to do is take your favorite deck. So we just gave up quite a few of our, sold quite a few of our decks. So now my new favorite deck, I'm actually going to say is probably the blue and maybe that's just because I'm having fun with it. The blue I pulled at FuseFest. So I'm going to be able to mount that deck, mint that deck, which mint is a term for you're spending some of the Solforge coin and you're turning it into an NFT. It's going into the record that says you own this deck digitally, okay? In Web3, it's an NFT. And then I'm going to have that. And that's going to give me the ability to trade it from wallet to wallet. Could be in a Stoneblade marketplace, and it actually can be done outside of a Stoneblade marketplace. I could talk to you, Greg, specifically, and say, hey, I'll send you this NFT, and you send me these tokens, and it's exchanged. Go straight to your wallet. Of course, we would need some marketplace to host it, so I'm not going to say it's easy to do it outside of Stoneblade, but it could be done. And you typically set that up through a smart contract. So that's basically, we build a contract that says you're going to give me 10 coins, and I'm going to give you this deck. As soon as we both sign it, it just happens automatically. It's outside of our power. The blockchain takes care of that. But that's what the NFT is. NFTs have come with a lot of negative connotation. I don't know if you want to jump into that, Greg.
No, I don't think I want to jump into I'll jump into it a little bit. So the thing to keep in mind, I mean, with cryptocurrency and NFT, and again, we're not experts in the field, right? And we're not obviously experts in accounting or taxes, especially depending on jurisdiction, country. But um, they are, at least in the U.S., those are assets, cryptocurrency, NFTs, and so the selling of them or buying of them can impact you um, financially. So that's something to keep in mind. I believe the U.S. treats them as a capital gain or capital loss when you sell or lose them. If you invest basically into cryptocurrency or into an NFT and you don't hold that for a year, your taxes are going to be much higher than if you were to sell it for a gain, or you're going to be taxed on that. So I'm just going to put that out there. I know Justin Gary kind of went on there and said he doesn't know. He's done a lot of research into this. He's been invested in this for a long time, which we'll go into. I think we have an even older article that he's done. So it's a little surprising that he didn't kind of mention this part of it. But just something to keep in mind, do your own research and look into it, because it can impact you the way that the U.S. government views cryptocurrency and NFTs.
It's a good point. And obligatory, we're not accountants and we're not tax advisors. Look, I learned that from Wall Street Bets. So I'm not a tax advisor. I just like this game. And so the capital gains is a thing to keep your eyes on. And honestly, the SEC right now still doesn't have it figured out. Just today, an article dropped that they're potentially targeting Robinhood, who's been their partner for the last 2 years, trying to figure crypto out, oddly enough. And so I know Solana was specifically named in the original lawsuit that kind of triggered the aspect of it to become security. I think it was Solana, Cardano, and one other. And that's what put Robinhood on the map with SEC to start figuring it out. So it's still not fully figured out. So just keep it in mind that there are potentially taxable events, taxable implications. But if you're at a very minor scale, think like eBay's rough rule of thumb is $600 a year. You probably don't have to claim it. Like I can't tell you that's the rule, but I would consider it generally the same. If you're not out making big money, I wouldn't worry about it so much. But no one got into Bitcoin, especially the person who bought a pizza for 27 Bitcoin or whatever it was. Never thought they were out there making money, and then it turned into something else. This isn't going to be that, but just keep it in mind. There are implications. And so we talk about those implications, and then Justin Gary talks here about common objections to Web3. You can see underlying theft, dystopian cash grabs, outright fraud. That is a very well-known aspect, and Solana has very much of those as well, just like all the other cryptos. There's not a single cryptocurrency that isn't hampered by these issues. If it's less regulated, there's more chance for graft or theft or any of that stuff. So kind of explains it, goes in through, isn't Web3 bad for the environment? Like, I don't want to touch that one with a 10-foot pole, Greg. I've heard very good arguments on both sides of the aisle. So
human race is bad for the environment. I'm just going to put that out there. So
that's a fact. But so is the sun, maybe. No, wait, no, it's
it's
all over. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
We enjoy this game.
Yeah. Can you look? So he even goes, can you do all of this without Web3? So this is why I said, like, once you now know it's integrated with SolForge Fusion, I think they anticipated a lot of our questions, and this article was written beforehand to answer some of the questions they expected. So there's a very good read. The answer is, basically you can do a lot of this stuff, but this makes it easier and cheaper potentially for the company to do it. NFT ownership isn't actual ownership. This kind of goes back to, we brought this up a lot, Greg. If I own the digital doodad, but the doodad doesn't do anything without the game running, and Stoneblade controls the keys to run the game, yes, I own a doodad, but it doesn't do anything. It's kind of the problem. Very good read. So link will be down below. We got one more that we just want to talk about really quick. And now this one's very fun because it was done in 2018. So Justin Gary, always out there like exploring, pushing the boundaries. This was in 2018, started trying to understand what cryptocurrency was. And again, like I said at the beginning, I really do like the way he explains things. As long as, when I read any article, I look at it from the author's point of view, and then I try to take a contrarian point of view and look at it. I think that's the best way to take articles. He explains things very well. And it just kind of goes through like, what are cryptocurrencies? And then, the first idea is most people have, well, why is a digital nothing worth money? So Justin takes a moment and explains, well, why is money worth money? What does it do? How did it come from the barter system? All of those things. Breaks it all down, very easily. See, how many apples equate to a new shirt? I don't know. I'll tell you how many apples I think it's worth. You'll tell me how many apples you think it's worth. But the society as a large will tell you how many coins it's worth. That's a basic idea. And so a lot of this starts to then focus on security, right? Security is a big aspect of being in the digital world, right? In a physical world, I can generally see those around me and know who's potentially going to rob from me at any given time. But then we started trusting banks. Then you can't always see who's trying to get at your money, right? Now we're on the internet. That's even harder to see who's trying to get at your money. And so a lot of this definitely takes that turn into it. It's very security minded. And then it's just going to break down what is cryptocurrency, how it's created. One thing I will say is I think that this was written early enough that it doesn't really break down the difference between proof of work, proof of staking, proof of history, which are some of the blockchain technology models. And so just keep that in mind that this article was written back when Justin believed that it was not environmentally friendly, which was 100% the case. When proof of work, Bitcoin is very energy intensive. But some of the new ones, proof of staking is not, proof of history is not.
I'm going to say what's really interesting about this. I mean, this is written back in 2018, so he's done a lot of research. He does, like you said, a good job of breaking things down and kind of giving his viewpoint in a well manner on it. It's interesting. I almost feel like he's kind of had this idea, like Solforge being a hybrid game. Kind of going into this, and maybe the technology wasn't there for him. He didn't have the right partners for him until now, right? And you bring up the point about the banks. We talked about the things with cryptocurrency and the blockchain, and how right now there's a lot of potential for scamming. There's a lot of issues that we see out in there, true or not, what the scale of it is. But it's very similar to the banking system back in the old days, right? When you would go to a bank, but that bank wasn't necessarily that safe to begin with because it wasn't backed by anything else, right? Nowadays, they've gone through that problem and have fixed it. Banks now are much more secure than they were years ago, backed by in this case, it's backed by the government, whereas banks used to not necessarily be backed by the government. So, I think a lot of those things in the blockchain, the cryptocurrency, in time will also come, right? I think every time something happens, we get closer and closer to a more reliable or safer situation in the Web3.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like the FDIC insured banks, like if your bank goes underwater, you're insured up to $250,000, and we've seen in the last couple of years that the government will even back you much higher than that, up to $2 million in one fairly recent case. So, but that's not the case in cryptocurrency. If someone gets into your wallet and takes your stuff, there's no one that's insuring you. You've lost your money. So that's a great point. And then, this whole part that should you invest, you could insert stock with cryptocurrency in this whole thing. And it's basically good rules of investment. If you follow these rules in any of your investing, you're probably doing okay. So you can see the rules there. Very wise advice. And then just kind of how do you get into it? So yeah, I think you're 100% spot on. Like his mind has been there, and maybe it is the George Lucas thing. Like I have a vision for where this needs to go, but the technology isn't there yet. And so then we come to when it does exist. So we're going to step through this a little bit. Now, this is, if you had to only read one thing to understand what's going on with Solforge Fusion, I please like foot stomp. This is the thing you should actually look through. I had to look through this multiple times, and still, like on the third time, I was seeing things that I didn't fully pick up the time before. So this is easily the most important part, and this is their basically working Git book that shows you all of their intents and purposes. It slides you through the whole project. It's the closest thing as we can get to like a business charter for Solforge Fusion. Solforge Fusion overview. Hey, if you're here, I hope you know what Solforge Fusion is. So we're gonna get into it. This is right now. It's honestly like this could have been made. The first couple slides could have been made for the investors, right? This is what we do, and this is our game. So you can see this is kind of a generic roadmap. We are going to get into a much more specific one later, but you can see the timeline for PC, Mac, Android, iOS, all of that stuff. Selling points, right? Richard Garfield's name attached to it, Justin Gary's name attached to it, some big names in game creation, game development. And so here's the release roadmap, right? So digital DEX exclusive release coming July 2024. That's right around the corner. Last winter just came out. And then physical digital integration. And now right here is where we're kind of at. Web3 utility. Airdrop of SFG utility token to the community. Now, airdrop is a very ubiquitous term within the Web3 community, that anytime someone is creating a new cryptocurrency that they want to get investment on, you want to get people interested, you just give a little bit to as many people as you can. Because when you're holding a coin, you say, oh, what is this coin? Like maybe it's worth something. I get interested, I look in the project, and I start to get invested myself personally, and then I take an interest and move forward. So airdropping is basically a term for just freely giving out a certain percentage of the overall amount of coins. And we'll get into that a little bit. And then you can use those tokens to mint decks, which that's turn them into NFTs. You can also use those tokens to enter events, so you can use them as your payment to enter an event, and then much more. And then you can earn some versus playing and community participation. So,
and I would guess here on the token commit, enter events, and more. I think part of it is probably you'd be able to purchase decks or purchase cosmetics or purchase special things with those tokens as well. Would be, again, it's not in here. That's just me going through everything that they've kind of established and coming to a conclusion, right? So
right.
That's me, not necessarily they've written it.
Yep. Yeah. We'll try our best to point out speculation, much like I did with Nathis's Platinum deck. When speculation comes. So this is just, again, a little bit of an introduction. Here's one of the slides I found very interesting, and some of the things we may talk within context of Justin Gary's Twitch address, or maybe you call it a Ask Me Anything. Had a moment on Twitch where he was just answering questions about the whole project. So we might refer back to that. Again, if you want to watch that video, highly recommend it. You can hear the words straight from the creator. That link will be in the description as well.
Yeah, and I just want to applaud Justin Gary going on that stream and taking questions from people and even having questions beforehand, because there was a lot of concern and angst, within the community on that. And for him to jump in there and answer questions, I think was a really good thing for the community.
Yeah. And if we didn't make that clear before, that's a good point, Greg. Like I think with the way that the article was leaked early, Stoneblade has done a very good reactive job about responding to questions. I don't know that. Actually, I'll say this: I don't think all of the questions have been answered.
Correct. Yeah.
But Stoneblade's effort has been placed very well.
Yeah. I think they could have answered some things better. I think they could have done some things better. I don't necessarily agree with all the things they do, but I applaud him jumping in there and giving us that face time to talk to him.
Absolutely. All right, so the 3 pillars of Solforge Fusion. This was a part that Justin took quite a bit of time on, and I think with good reason, because we all want to know where Solforge Fusion stands, and there's a very vocal and active community that likes the tabletop play pillar. So the way I look at this is there's a three-legged stool that is Solforge Fusion. Um, and I maybe I'm wrong, but this says each pillar stands alone and supports each other. So if one stands too tall, I assume the other two will fall. Now that may not be a case. That might be me misinterpreting the situation. But if you have where they each stand alone yet support each other, yeah, they kind of have some equilibrium.
My
But
thing
you got
about a
the
three-legged stool is you could have a lot of difference between for a three-legged stool.
not too much, but so you get tabletop play. That's what we first all started with. That like, not all of us. I should take that back. Ray, that's where you and I started. That's where quite a
Yep.
few players started, and I would say um, probably 80% of the active community, and that's no slight at the 20%. But the digital is fairly new to this game. The physical was out for almost 2 years before the digital or the Web 2 came into play. The Web 2 is what we all currently know and understand, and that is the digital client aspect and the tabletop simulator, I would say, is kind of a blending of tabletop play and Web 2.
Yeah, I almost put the table. I mean, the tabletop simulator is, kind of that Web 2 aspect, but I feel
Yep.
it falls into that tabletop
Yeah, a little bit
play.
of a little
Yeah,
bit of a blend.
yeah,
But then Web 2, the other promise is mobile. That's another big part of Web 2. So keep that in mind when the mobile clients come out. That's another part of that pillar. And then Web 3, this is where we get the community owned games we're going to talk about a little bit, going back to that decentralized autonomous organization. And then the NFTs, the governance, the token. So Web 3, that's the crypto aspect and the NFT aspect. So you get to break each one of these down if you want. Look, we kind of did that. I love seeing Creasy from Gen Con. A lot of good old throwback pictures here from the actual game. Then you get here web and mobile, Web 3. Now, again, unique and useful NFTs, mint one of one, give players true ownership and upside in the game. I think we've really talked a bit about the NFTs, but we're gonna break that down a little bit more. But let's skip over this one here and go to community-owned games. So the idea of this is if you have the cryptocurrency SFG, not to be confused with Solforge, the Forge crypto coin.
which is also a Solana token.
Yes, it is. It is a token on the Solana blockchain. So I don't want to put this up there jokingly. I want to put this up there as a public disclaimer. This is another cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain that actually has nothing to do with our Solforge Fusion, but it is named Solforge. So keep that in mind. Let's jump back over here to the community-owned games. Now, this is a term that's been used elsewhere, but only a little bit. I actually think that Stoneblade, this is one of their maybe monikers to kind of make the decentralized autonomous organization a little bit more palatable and call it a community-owned game. I have seen it a couple other places, but it's this is very prominent here with its nice logo. So players benefit from the success of their favorite games. Greg, the way I read that is if I hold the coin and the game gets more productive or better or more popular, that coin goes up in value. There are potential other benefits, like maybe I get NFT airdrops if I partake in events that help better the game. But I am generally tying this back to probably monetary value. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's two aspects. When I see empowering gamers using Web3, right? This community-owned games, right? As you mentioned, they've talked about players that are, we're going to call it vested or staked, right? Potentially having more say in the game. Um, so so that could be one part of it. The other part, it could be the monetary value as well that you as we'll get into this as well, I think, maybe, or maybe we'll jump into it now. But the way that they're doing the airdrop and the way that using the Solforge tokens goes, as a player, you're going to need to use those to get NFTs, to join some events, or maybe you don't need them for events, but it's an optional payment for events, or purchasing other things. Again, maybe optional, maybe able to play in USD rather than in tokens. there's only a set number of tokens um, at creation, and that's apparently going to be the max. So again, going off of Justin's thing, he thinks scarcity and rarity is a good thing. It's only good if you're holding on to a large portion of the tokens. And so as a player, if you're having to use the tokens that you got to do these activities, you won't necessarily be benefiting from them in that regards. But you could be benefiting from having some say in the game or where rewards are going. But again, I'm not a fan of that. Like we should have a say regardless if we're in doing this optional Web3, Ryan. Like as a player base, us buying the product and doing these events and being engaged in it should give direction to the company. They should want to do the things that we want to do without having to invest in this Web3 application.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is that Justin made it very clear, and there's one thing that I respected his opinion a whole lot too, is that the say that the community will get is not necessarily in gameplay mechanics. Like he very much appreciates and his skill set that he's honed over his entire career, and his developer skill set that they've learned through experience. And so we'll get some say in aspects of the game, but it won't necessarily be gameplay derived, right? We're not going to say ban Krogius and we all hit the vote button and the big C's out the door. That's not going to happen, right?
But, yeah. And I completely agree with that. Like game design, game mechanics, like maybe as a community we should all say maybe you should look at this. This is an issue, but I think what they were talking about is how do they divvy up rewards? Well, you shouldn't have to be invested in these tokens to have a say in it. The company should want to do that regardless, right? So this is the one area that I really. And I don't want to get in too much detail. This is the one area for both those reasons. The fact that you have to spend the token, so you're really not getting that benefit. You're gonna have to pay for a service that probably should already be there. You're already buying the decks, and you should already be rewarded for playing and purchasing the game and buying the decks, right? So it seems like a double taxation almost kind of thing to me. But that's all I'll go on it.
And I think we're both there, and I would say the way to word that is this is one of the big parts where we're a bit at odds on Stoneblade's approach to this. But I said it before, I like to be contrarian. I call it red team. And so one thought I would just throw out there as well is that a potential player benefit from these tokens is that much like other digital card games do, you kind of pay in to an event to play, and if you do well enough, you get your tokens back and maybe plus some. So that is a way to reward maybe potentially the most dedicated player, in that if you pay 5 tokens to enter the event and you win, you get 7 tokens back. So you kind of are monetarily rewarded by being able to infinitely do your favorite activity.
And that's a good point. And I would just say the other games have to use NFTs to do that, right? I can jump in Magic Arena and do well and keep gaining stuff for the game that I want to play. But if you're looking for a monetary value into the game, right, that's your focus, then I could see that being a selling point. So
and that brings up a good point, is that digital in-game currencies are not cryptocurrencies. They are viewed differently depending on your government, right? But in the United States, they are viewed very, very much differently. I can own as much gold in the World of Warcraft I want. I don't have to pay taxes on that unless I realize the gains, right? If I sell 1,000 Warcraft gold coins for $800 and I go up over the the criteria, that counts as extra income or whatever, right? That's income. That's not capital gains. We kind of talked about that, but just kind of keep in mind that digital currency in a game, digital in-game currency is not cryptocurrency per se, but cryptocurrency that's in a game is cryptocurrency. And that's what we're talking about here.
So do your own research. We're not tax experts. We just like the game.
We just like this game. So community-owned story, I feel like, again, this was made for the investors. We already feel like we get a community-owned story. Your team, Greg, as a collective group at FuseFest, selected Cersei to stay alive and not let out her secret. Like you already are invested in the story. So I think this slide
They
was
do a
just built for the
fantastic job with
investors.
it. I
Yeah.
love George's take on it. It's great. I may have I may be critical at times, but that's because I'm invested and I enjoy it. I think they do a great job.
There's if you check out Justin Gary's blog, he has an article on anthropological storytelling that I hear George speaking through, and I really love that article, and I love that Justin supports that as well. The story is what Solforge Fusion does different than most, and makes them unique. So here's we're gonna get into the tokenomics. Now this is where I think we might have some sharper words. I think let's get into it. So I'll just say right up front, Greg, that I don't believe Stoneblade went this route purely to make money. But I can't in good faith say I also believe when Justin said this won't make them money.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think they went this route because Justin is very passionate in the game design and game flow, and like really wants to see where he can take this. And he's very intelligent. He does really good. Like I think he thinks and he probably can do something different than what everybody else has done in the Web3 environments. I do disagree, and I agree with you, Ryan. I disagree with him that he's not going to make money off of this just because of the way that they're doing the drop. It incentivizes that if this works, they're going to make a good portion of money off of just the way that it works, right? And all companies need to make money, right? They need to be able to support the game. They need to support their actions. They have people investing in this. He's investing his time and his team doing this, right? So there needs to be some value on there. The only thing I ask is just be upfront about that. And when we look at how the tokenomics work, we'll kind of see how if this is successful, they can make a good bit of cash on it.
Yeah. And so to kind of get into that, before you had talked about there's a set amount of tokens. Now, I will always tell you with any cryptocurrency, that is never true.
They say initial.
Yeah, they always will drop with a set amount of tokens. And, well, I shouldn't say never true. There are some out there, go do your research, that have put a cap and they say they burn it, they can't do it, they can no longer make any. And those are actually kind of interesting, I think, to look into. But most don't do that because you run the risk of it all disappearing, right? And not being able to sustain the organization. If something really, really bad happens, you might need to print more money.
Yeah, and he stated he wants to have these being scarce and rare, right? Like that was, he likes scarcity and rarity, right? So that's something to keep in mind, the mindset.
Yeah, I do think these will stick at 100 million tokens in perpetuity as long as nothing cataclysmic happens, right?
And the game would have to grow
the wallet gets
massively.
deleted, like the strategic reserve, the liquidity mining wallet gets deleted. Those are the types of things I'm talking about, cataclysmic.
Yeah.
Then maybe you print more. But so we see the 100 million tokens. The ones I talked about, strategic reserve and reserve for 1 year liquidity mining, those are very common things you'll see in tokenomics. The strategic reserve is the OS button when you're in trouble and you need them. They're there. The reserve for 1 year liquidity mining, that gives you the ability to exchange funds at will amongst your player base. Like if for some reason all of it's out and someone wants to turn in SFG for a product, you have a potential way to exchange goods. And then now is where we get into what I think are the interesting numbers. Okay, so 25%, Greg, team, advisors, current investors. I read that as Stoneblade contractors and advisors for Web3 integration, and the investors. So this is the team, this is the company's way to make money. What we don't know is the separation, like how much does Stoneblade have, how much do the investors have.
And the other interesting thing, I think, is further down in this article, is that those are vested for 3 years. So from my understanding, they can't be touched for 3 years, right? Which is,
I was just gonna say, like, that needs to be publicly auditable. So I expect Stoneblade will do that. I I have been in, I've seen it. I've been in cryptocurrencies where they call it a rug pull. If everyone's heard of that, that's where they'll say, these amount of coins are vested or whatever, and then whoever created the crypto coin sells all theirs and then runs.
Yeah,
But
and the other thing
what
with the
Stoneblade will do is I suspect, and now this is an expectation, is that they'll lock it in a smart contract that they can't be accessed for 3 years, and then they'll make that publicly auditable on the blockchain.
it'll be interesting how they also do that with the strategic reserve. Who has control of that? Who has the decision making power on that? Right?
Yeah.
How is that audited? Right? And kind of going back to kind of some of the Q&A, some of the questions that were asked but not answered was a lot around how is this process audited, right? And those were not answered, right? So those are, I think, still open questions, not only on the cryptocurrency but also DEX, because DEX have value now through cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I wanted to give a shout out to the late great weekend. Absolute pillar of the community, ran weekly events through the dark times of Solforge Fusion when we didn't have events going on. Was an absolute phenomenal member of the community. Just kept the light burning. This news came out and he got out of the game. I think it was pretty indirect relation, but I bring that up because he was adamantly asking about the public auditing and more details on this that you're right did go unanswered in those streams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, weekend. Thanks for everything you've done with the community. I hope we are able to still keep in touch, Gen Con or other places. So,
yeah. Okay, so we'll jump into the 22% airdrop to selected Solforge and then also blockchain community. So what this is telling me, Greg, is they told every active member of the game. So basically, if you have a Solforge Fusion account, you're going to have the ability to set up a wallet and receive some free SFG tokens. Mostly with the intent to mint your first few decks. It'll be just enough to mint some decks. I don't know how many, but then you'll have to purchase more to continue minting NFTs. The other thing it says is blockchain communities. So this goes back to how I originally talked about the airdrops. This is to drum up interest in the project. So they are going to go out. This is speculation, right? But this is how it's done. They're going to go out to other blockchain communities, Web3 gamers. So they're going to go into all of those, gaming communities, be it on Discord, if it's on Telegram, wherever it's at, and find the gamers that really invest in these games. And they're going to give them free SFG tokens and say, hey, come check out Solforge Fusion. Or they'll throw a flyer out that says, if you're interested in playing Solforge Fusion, a new hot Web3 game, do XYZ to get your airdrop tokens. As long as you have a wallet at this time, you do this, you'll get the tokens. Again, drum up interest. And then the community-owned game fund, you nailed it before. When you said, this is where we get our say. How are these things awarded? I'll get to vote and say, I think Greg should get 400 SFG tokens because I like the fact that he rocked a mustache for so long. I could vote for anything I want. Is it going to be like that? No, absolutely not. But I do just throw some random stuff out because they're throwing this in the power of the community is what it sounds like the intent is.
Yeah, and again, this is all speculation here. This is just kind of our thoughts on it, right? So again, community-owned game fund, they kind of talked about this, this is the rewards. Do you want rewards going to digital? Do you want rewards going to physical, right? How do you want to split that up? And again, this is where I draw some issues with this process, right? That should already be kind of baked into part of the purchasing of the product itself, and now it's being tied to a token that may or may not do well regardless of how much we spend on the physical front. For instance, right, we buy a lot of physical decks. We know a lot of people that buy physical decks. That's not going to impact the dollar value of the SFG token, right? So if we're trying to make bets on using this fund, right, this is a fund of SFG tokens that has a USD dollar value on it. It's going to be a very small amount split across everybody, right? Again, this is, then putting the onus on the players. So all speculation, but these are some of the things that happen with this that I kind of draw issues with.
Two things I do want to talk about on this that I think One is definitely a positive, is that 33% is a very large amount of these tokens. It's an extreme amount when you look at it in comparison to what they're setting aside for the team advisors and current investors. I don't think you see this level of community investment in a typical tokenomics slide. So I will give them that credit in that they are setting aside 33 million, whatever. 33% of these, or no, 33 million. Math's hard. 33% of these tokens solely for the purpose of rewarding the community or interacting with the community or enabling the community-owned game aspect. I don't know what that's going to look like, so that's just me on the surface level saying that that's a large amount to put to it. I hope that means good things. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up that you kind of talked about is that just to make clear, like the price of a deck, the price of an NFT is not tied to the value of SFG. Like you said it right there, and I just want to make sure that like the impetus is the value of the coin is the SFG coin is going to be valued by society. And what that's really going to drive is how many decks are selling on the secondary market. Or what is the utility of the token? Is my voting power worthwhile? Do I want to own and hold tokens? If I do, because it gives me such really cool voting rights, the value will rise because it takes them out of circulation, right? It makes them harder to get to. That's what makes the SFG coin itself valuable. It is not going to affect the price of your deck. All it's going to do is affect how many coins you exchange for that deck. So if I buy a $50 USD deck, I still buy $50 worth of SFG, no matter how much that comes out to one. If it comes out to 50 coins, it's still the same, and I exchange that for the deck. So I just want to have that little basis.
And Ryan, you can correct me on this. You know, you're a little bit more into depth on the cryptocurrency and these drops, right? But you got to also understand, you know, not you necessarily, but like people think about it, like there's 100 million coins. Those have an initial value based on what SBE and investors are putting into the system that they put into it. So they kind of have a value that it's initially valued at, that they've invested essentially, and that they're hoping to make back off of that. So then as we use these coins or buy these coins or invest these coins, and that value goes up as players try to gain coins, right? Becomes a market and demand perspective. You know, they're hoping to that SFG coin goes up based on what they've originally invested on it as. So
yeah, and so when you say they set the value of it, they can, but that doesn't mean anyone's going to buy it. So let's
correct.
say day one goes out there and they say, hey, you can buy more SFG coins for $5 a pop. If no one's buying them, they're going to quickly plummet down to about 2 cents a coin. And then we're going to buy coins, and then it's going to rise back up to 10 cents. It is eventually going to find its equilibrium. It's like any other currency out there, right? Like it comes and goes based off of societal expectations or want. Like
and I bring that up. Yeah, so thank you for clearing that deeper. I bring that up because as we use these tokens for things like joining events or minting decks, right, it's going to mean that the circulation goes down, which means that the value per coin should go up, right? And so that's where you know, over 3 years, that's where they're hoping to get their investment back on it. Not to mention all the other stuff that's going on that's in adding into this.
Yeah, and I probably should have flipped over this next one. Reading through this really quick though, the only thing I want to highlight before moving on, because you kind of brought it up, is what is going to govern the strategic reserve. That we don't necessarily know, but right now they're telling us it's for future partnerships, exchange listings, and then ecosystem growth. So it is important for coins to be listed outside of their native marketplace. Like I think that's like a Web3 proven truth. If you're only ever in your own marketplace, your price per your token will devalue itself because it doesn't have access to more people, right? You want investors that don't even play your game are going to be exchanging SFG. That's just a part of the way crypto works. And that's what I think they mean by exchange listings. So they're going to use these to get on other exchanges just to ensure that the token can be moved around, which is a normal part of cryptocurrency listings and stuff.
Yeah, and similar to the 10%, I think, you know, good portion to have for liquidity. So they're doing good things. Like how they're setting it up, I think, is good. Like they're so.
So one thing that a conversation we had outside of this, Greg, that you brought to my attention that I had totally bypassed. I didn't catch this till the third time right around after you pointed it out. It is for a player to mint a new NFT deck using their SFG tokens. Those tokens are burned. So I just want to say what burned means, and then I want if you could kind of break that down for us, Greg. But burned is when it's deleted. Honestly, I think that's the best word, but we can't use that for other reasons. But it no longer exists. So there was 100 million. Now there's 999,999. It's gone. It's never going to come back. It can't. It's in the ledger. It's locked in. It's gone. Deleted. So that's what burned means. You have reduced the overall supply by X amount.
Yeah, and this is real interesting for a couple concepts. The first one is an unknown, right? And that is the amount to again because with cryptocurrencies, it's not a one for one. Like you can go decimals, right? Like you can go, I'm going to sell 0.13 of this, right? So the unknown is what does it take to mint a deck? Is it just one token? Is it two tokens? Is it a dollar value based on that token, right? So is it $10 worth of tokens? So that could be 0.5 of a token, that could be 8 tokens. So we don't know what that is. The implication though is that as you burn these tokens, I've kind of mentioned this a couple times already, is that as you burn these tokens, that total amount of tokens in the environment goes down. And as things go down, you would expect the supply and demand, right? The demand goes down, the supply goes down, your demand is still static or going higher. You're going to increase the value of those tokens over time, just from a scarcity aspect. If people are invested in utilizing the system, right? If this game kicks off, right? If we're kind of at our current state, it will take a very long time, I think, to hit any kind of threshold with the number of coins that they're putting out, or number of tokens, I should say, putting out into the marketplace, right? So just something to keep in mind how they plan on doing that, because that'll make a large impact. Like, because you could be burning a deck at like, it takes 2 cents to mint this deck, turn into an NFT, or it could be like it's now $10. Like, I don't know how they're judging that. If they're going off of a dollar amount, or if they're going off of a token amount.
And a couple of things I do want to bring up, just on the basis. Obviously, everyone can go do their own research and don't take everything we say at face value. But especially me, I guess I'll throw it out there. We're not advisors. But burning for economic stabilization is a very contentious topic in cryptocurrencies, and there's plenty that do it, and there's some that swear off of it, right? So like Shiba Inu, like it's a part of their process to like at some point they just burn a bunch of tokens and look, our stuff is more valuable because there's less of it. It doesn't always happen, but it is definitely a mental side effect of burning a bunch of tokens. Oh, there's less now. They're more scarce. They're more rare. And then like Bitcoin does the halving. I don't remember however many years it happens, but every so often it becomes much harder to produce less Bitcoin. Right, and so that's what makes it harder to get. They're never burning Bitcoin, but what they're doing is over time it's just harder and harder and harder to get. So in the first year, when you easily made 1,000 of them on the same computer system setup, now in 2024 you're only making 2 of them. Right, so that's their process. There is always some baked-in scarcity process. We just need to know, because this one's kind of unique, how it's going to factor. And you bring up a good point when you said, is it going to be 1 token? Is it going to be 8 token? To show an extreme, like in an inflated market, it could be 10,000 tokens, right? And then we're talking about pretty big swings in the amount of tokens out there. Not saying it'll happen, but it's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, so one of the questions we should ask them is how many tokens, or is it a dollar amount? That makes a big difference, right? So.
Yep. And one thing that I did want to point out here is that, so I'm going to read this line. This ensures a steady reduction in the circulating supply of SFG over time and sets a maximum cap on the number of minted NFT decks in circulation, helping maintain the value of your deck collection over time. Now, I would like some clarification on this from Stoneblade, but I'm going to throw my best interpretation out here, Greg, for this. And that is, how would you cap the number of minted decks? Unless you're saying we will never make more than 100 million SFG, and by simply burning it all, you can now no longer mint decks. That's what I read into it. So if we mint all the decks, there's no longer SFG, and we can no longer digitally trade Solforge Fusion decks. That's kind of the step one, is you burn the tokens. Step two, you have a maximum cap on NFT decks. Step three, my assumption is we no longer have SFG tokens, and I can no longer trade for NFTs in Solforge Fusion. So that's kind of a question I have out there. And then I would also say, I don't think that maintains the value of my deck collection at all. I think the value of my deck collection is built off of its usefulness in the game and the meta, unless it is in the roadmap. They start making comics and TV shows, and there comes like a pop culture aspect to Solforge Fusion, much like Pocket Monsters, that people just want to own a Pikachu and put it in their back pocket and say they have a Pikachu, right? So that's the only way I see it giving value to my deck, when there's no longer NFTs that can be minted. But otherwise, the values of these decks are tied to the usefulness in the game. Your Rumble Spark's worth more, right? Your Army Commander decks are worth more. It's not because I can't mint anymore. So that's just kind of some thoughts I had there, Greg.
Yeah, so I do think that if they were to get to the point where the pool of SFG tokens got so low that players can no longer do the functionality of minting decks to be able to trade them, I think they would add more tokens to the pool. Again, that's just speculation. Again, one of the core aspects of this game is being able to trade those, because if you can't trade decks or get new decks anymore, then you've just lost all that value of it, right? You'd have the value of your current decks. The other thing that's interesting to me is NFTs are usually meant to show like uniqueness, but our decks are all already unique. You already brought onto it, right? The value of the deck is that you have that deck and nobody else does. It doesn't matter if it's an NFT or not, right? Like, the value is in playing it. So,
all right, so let's I think we already kind of talked about this. This is saying that you can lock up your tokens, and really it's what it does is it gives you some things. If you lock up your tokens, you get the votes we kind of talked about, and this is telling you how you can earn just a little bit more detail. So this is talking about that strategic reserve, trying to set up collaborations. So this is the part where it says, as well as development of new features and experiences like comic books, animated series, and other platforms that expand the game's reach and appeal. I got a really good laugh. I saw someone in the Discord said they couldn't wait for the comic book with our terribly, well, actually, I shouldn't mock the art, but the cards of us in a comic book. And I say terrible because it's our faces, but the art was actually really good. They did well.
Yeah, I like the art. I like how they played out on there.
But so that's what I mean. Like, your NFT deck could conceivably be worth something outside of the game if like Solforge Fusion is the new Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and your toddlers are just watching Korok Womp on Sunder in an animated TV, and they want to own an NFT deck. Sure, like that possibility exists. I won't say it doesn't. And so I think that's cool. I think this leaves a lot open. I am interested to see if any of that plays out. That exciting potential.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. I've dabbled in cryptocurrency and stuff. I just don't think it's needed in the game that I play.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am interested to see where it goes, to see what they can do with it. I will hold my full judgment till the future, but I'm hesitant.
Yeah, absolutely. When I said I'm excited for the future, I specifically in regards to comic books, animated series, and other things. I'm very much with you, Greg. Hey, I commend Stoneblade for taking this step into Web3 and trying to be the pioneers. I wish it wasn't in the game that I love so much, because it's going to change it drastically. Mm-hmm. And I'm a human. Yeah. I don't like change. This was a part of my life that was separate from the hectic of work and all those other things and all those things that change dynamically all the time. This was a game I loved. I like a little bit of change. I like the sets, you know what I mean, the new cards. And so that's just it, right? Like, I didn't want this for this game because this is a part of my life I enjoy. But like you said, I'll withhold the full weight of judgment until we see how it shakes out, right? So kind of a wait and see pattern is the approach I'm taking. But here is the partners. So what hasn't been said specifically is the amount of investment and who reached out to who. So we don't know if Stoneblade reached out to these partners to try to set this up, or if these partners reached out to Stoneblade. I would assume Stoneblade went looking for investors to bring them into the Web3 space, but I don't know that. And what we don't know is the amount of control that these companies could potentially have over the future of Solforge Fusion. Though I will say Justin made it equivocal that they don't have gameplay mechanic or things like that. But I think it's safe to say that they will exert some level of pressure to increase the value of the coin. And that's probably just going to come in the form of like experienced advice, right? These companies do this for a living. They know what makes coins go up in value. Is that going to be good or bad for the game we know and love? We don't know. But their advice will probably try to lead them into increasing the value of the coin.
That's pretty. I think that's pretty fair to say on all those fronts. I think, like I said, Justin Gary has seemed to have been in this space for a long time. He's been researching it and looking into it. So I think he has a lot of knowledge. Went into this with full open eyes and expectations and experience. I mean, this is 6 years now from his original article on it. So he's had plenty of time. So I think in that regards, I'm more comfortable. But again, looking at other Web3 style games does not paint a promising picture.
Right. Absolutely. And then we want to jump into the project roadmap. So really the dates we get don't go past fall 2024, and we don't get a ton of information. Let's look at summer 2023 though. There's a couple keywords I want to point out and just gauge your thoughts, Greg. So summer 2023, set to physical game global launch. Spring 2024, set 3 content launch, token airdrop, limited edition NFT sales, full PC client launch. Fall 24, set 4 game launch. So I think they chose those words to very clearly articulate the pillars and the movement of the game, right? In the 2023, we were physical only. 2024, we had digital. Fall 2024, we include the mobile. We have the game where it doesn't say physical, it doesn't say digital, so our minds are assuming both. And then we have NFT, like full Web3, last pillar in place. But it's very, very broad.
Yeah, I think it is very broad, and there are 2 things that I'm interested in, and again, it's just my biasy. I'm interested about the digital exclusives. It seems to remove a pillar.
Yep.
And
we'll get there.
Yeah, and the second one is I want to know more of a roadmap for physical, organized play and competitive play. I feel like we only have one good season of that with the UCs, and they started off really rough, which then kind of dampered the other UCs, right? Issues with getting product, issues with timelines and heads up. So I would love to see that come back on full force. And I'd also like to see Stoneblade's marketing plan to bring physical back to gaming stores across the U.S., which I don't know if we're going to get, but in order to have that third pillar of physical, I think you're going to need to get that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Physical hit so hard, had a very, very ambitious physical plan. I think they did okay. Like you expressed some of the Mars and stuff, but like the plan was built so it was at least followed through. And I mean that got us to travel to a couple places, Denver, Indiana, to play. And then I think with the digital release, Stoneblade got and the Web3 that was being developed behind the scenes, the client and the Web3, they probably maybe just had a lot going on, and there was never a roadmap for organized play physically like developed for this year 2024. So that's a great point. This is a great place to bring it up with those pillars. I also would love to see a game plan come out, a roadmap to say, hey, store championships are coming back, ultimate championships are coming back, or tell us they're not.
Yeah, just give us let us know what's going on or what we can do and plan for, because there's only I probably less. I mean, I probably have more fingers than there are stores actively playing Solforge in the U.S. right now.
And then, so let's move down here to this Fusion future roadmap. No dates assigned. There's really a couple things I just want to talk about. So we talked about community governance. That's going to get implemented. Expand the IP. They talked about that. These two, though, full blockchain gameplay. Now, that's a loaded statement, and I'm saying that lightly. So, truly owned game objects. I can't even begin to understand what full blockchain gameplay means, other than I would point you back to that episode on the podcast with Neeraj Kashyap and Justin Gary. They talk a little bit about full blockchain integration, but I can't see how it's going to relate to Solforge Fusion. And I would love Stoneblade to give us more information on what they actually envision with this. But the intent would be that the game is no longer controlled by Stoneblade. That's what I got out of the episode, is that the game is put on rails and it goes forward. So once things are written, they can't be undone, right?
It's a ledger. It's not a database.
We can read about that as like, once a card's created, it can never be changed. Once a rule is made, it can never be changed. That's the really sticking point. And that was a whole lot of speculation. But, definitely check out that podcast with Neeraj. And that's what that went into. And then the other one is on the left here, platform expansion. Modes available for console, standalone client. That sounds cool. And then we get this word, and cross-chain. Anytime in Web3 or crypto you talk about cross-chain, that's when you're talking about like a bridge between different blockchains entirely. So merging the experience to be able to be Ethereum compatible or Bitcoin compatible. You've basically jumped this off of Solana and moved over to being able to accept Ethereum or operate within an Ethereum ecosystem. So that's another one. I think it would be very interesting if Stoneblade kind of gave us just a little bit more of their vision, like what the intent is, what they actually see. Is that just thrown out there to potentially lure investors from other chains to try to make cross-chain happen? Because there are bridges between certain chains, definitely possible. I don't know that I've seen it in a Web3 yet. Not saying it's not out there, but so that kind of all wraps up. It's just saying, hey, you're not just a player, you're a co-owner, you're a co-creator. Welcome to the Stoneblade team now that you're an SFG owner. One last thing I wanted to pull up here, Greg, and you brought it up for a bit, but if you go into Steam and you pull open the Steam page for Solforge Fusion, and you can look through it, they have a roadmap in here that actually has different things than the roadmap we just looked at, right? And one of those things, and this is generally more literal into the Steam app, which is great, but it's just digital only sets. Now, we haven't actually really talked about it yet, Greg, but the word that they have used many times for the Web3 pillar is that it is optional. You can continue to experience the Solforge Fusion you love today and never have to get into Web3 integration at all if you don't want to. But here's my pushback on that. So the Solforge Fusion game that I love today allows me to engage on the secondary market and have equal access or competition to the most competitive decks on the market at any given time. If I want to spend more money than someone else to buy the most competitive deck, I can do that. Money is my only limitation. That's just the secondary market, right? But if you start releasing digital only sets that have cards that are unique to the digital application, and those can get minted to NFTs, and that's the only way to trade them, then I, as a Web3 opt out person, no longer have the same level of access to that half of the secondary market as anyone else. So I'm no longer enjoying Solforge Fusion in the exact same way that I did previously. And so I know you brought that up before, but yeah, very curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up something here. Sorry. Um, so two points, right? Yeah, the caveat again, playing Team Red is I could always still buy. I won't be able to necessarily trade them, or the trading becomes again depending on what options they're going to give players, right? I can buy the digital decks and then print them on demand to have them in the physical play. I could have somebody that has a digital only deck, have them print it out and send it to me. Can they do that? We don't know. The other concern I have is, and this was brought up from, you had brought this up in the Discord, and Lucas responded as to this is around the digital decks. It's something we plan on making. They look like at the moment it's still up for debate. There are a couple reasons for this, so break some of them down, right? So again, this isn't written in stone. This is just some of SB's thoughts on this. It's cheaper and it possesses less risk in printing. We know that, right? So we've kind of talked about that. And it allows them to do mechanics that are much more tedious in the physical space, right? So largely random effects or selection, and depending how far we explore that space, there would still be a visible physical print when we get that option available. And then 3, the turnaround would be much quicker, which allows to fill space between physical releases. So I agree in that this could make it so Web3 is no longer optional, but I hope that they're designing this around that. Even though they can do these things easier in the digital, they still design it in a way to provide it physical and still allow a way to print a digital deck and then put it into the website how we're used to, then to allow it to trade. So there are more steps you'd have to go through, but
Yeah.
so
that
I'm very like you. I am very concerned because this is a very slippery slope, I feel.
Yeah. The last bit, though, I will tell you that confirmed by Stoneblade, right now there is no intent to be able to allow you to trade digital decks outside of NFT integration. So I know you're saying they could have URL unlock codes, but that is not currently in the game plan.
Yeah. So yeah, how does that work when you go print to demand? Does that now put it into the physical realm space or not? That's the question I have.
I think my interpretation of them saying you can't trade it is that it will print it off, but it won't have a QR code or an unlock code. Because it's tied to the NFT. That's the owner, whoever owns the NFT.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just then. And at that point, Ryan, that if that's the direction that they go, then there is a big difference. That you've now impacted that third pillar. The other thing that worried me is the full integration into the blockchain of the game. I think it was one of the points mentioned.
Yeah.
Like how does that now no longer, you can't keep the 3 pillars separate at that point. Like you at that point would almost have to go into it if you're integrating everything. So So yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. Mostly just playing devil's advocate on this, especially if they start implementing things that only work in the digital space, because now you have a different game. Or if you, and again, this is something that we've brought up multiple times. Of is there going to be, and I think they've pivoted to not doing this, but I'm still not 100% certain. Is different rules in the digital space than there is in the physical space. We have one of those right now in. Can you see my deck or not, right? You play the game very differently if you can see your opponent's deck or not, right? different rules in the digital space than the physical space. Like, these are all huge concerns.
Yeah, last I heard is that they're going to consolidate those, but you bring up the deck list is outside of those kind of in its own way, right? It's not outside of the gameplay rules, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's not a game card mechanic. I know that they're going to resolve those so that digital and physical will eventually react the same. But I don't know about the deck list. That's something that's been a hot topic for a while. So. But hey, so we've went over a lot of stuff. Look, what we try to do was use the information that Stoneblade put out and then just flavor it with our opinions. So please understand that that's what a lot of this was. And just know that we're both, Greg, we're just very passionate players. Like, that's why we created this channel, was to just spend more time talking about a game we love. And that's what we did here today. Sounds like we're both taking the wait and see approach, and really gonna see how it actually impacts our gameplay over time. But this news did kind of come out of left field, and it's not something we necessarily envisioned. So does it impact our exposure to the game? Absolutely, right? As it will for every player. And so very interested to see the future of this. Very interested to hear other players' thoughts. I'm pretty active in the Discord, and I definitely love engaging other players and at least just like gauging what their opinions are and thoughts. And I think we kind of get to see all gamuts of it in there. So, I say all that to just say, hey, if you want to share your thoughts on the way that Stoneblade's going in the video comments below, please do. Say however you feel. Also, feel free to let us know what you think of our thoughts. If we said something incorrectly, please feel free to throw out there why you think otherwise. But provide some resources so we can all learn from that if you choose to take that route. That's all I would ask. Greg, final parting thoughts?
Don't take our investing or tax advice. Do your own research. We just enjoy the game.
Yeah. I like this. I like this game. All right. With that being said, we got the cat back up, going to the moon again. As Godsmack said, to the moon, baby. Thanks everyone for listening in for this episode.
Bye.
Thanks for attending this lesson of the Forgeborn Finishing School. If you like this video, please subscribe, comment, or consider donating to our Patreon account. We look forward to our next lesson.